It's now time for The Sit Down with Don Tony.
The Sit Down, where Don Tony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Don Tony.
And now, your host, Don Tony.
All right, I am back. Took a week off. Had to get a little medical procedure done from a medical facility, but I am doing better. And I am live. What is it, 23rd? 23rd of November, 2025. Welcome to your latest edition of The Sit Down. Hope everyone is having a good weekend. For those that stood up until almost 3 o'clock in the morning watching Full Gear and the media scrum. Good for you, man. Good for you. Hope you're catching up on your Z's today. We had Full Gear go down the last 24 hours for AEW. We had AAA's Alianzas, I believe it is. How do you all that follow it like the little tribute to Los Gringos Locos? A little bit of Art Barr and Eddie Guerrero being reincarnated with a Grande Americano and Dominik Mysterio. Kind of got that vibe. I think some of you will agree. Some of you older folk will agree. But I watched AAA yesterday. I watched bits and pieces of Full Gear today. Still have more I got to watch, but the important parts of it that I wanted to see, I did see. And I tell you, the matches that I thought I would absolutely get right as far as championships go, I got wrong. The ones that I felt that I'm probably wrong, but I'm going to take this stance anyway, I end up getting right. I'm telling you guys, we are on the verge of Mercedes Mone on the decline. I think that is about to start happening. It's not going to be a full-blown, implosion. I mean, you're not going to do that to someone who's, still in her prime and arguably in a Hall of Famer, a future Hall of Famer, obviously. And Tony Khan would not treat her, any other way, but that decline is about to happen. And I was very surprised at how many people agree with me that the probably the PWI 250 is the reason why they waited until now. Wait until the PWI 250 comes out. She's ranked number 1. What would the optics look like if she's in the middle of a losing streak or an implosion or, a couple of losses and she comes out as number 1? It kind of loses a little bit of its luster, right? So you kind of feel like they waited till the PWI 250 to come out. And for those who are going to be like, oh, DT, it's just a magazine. It's just stats. Yeah, that's everything to AEW. Chris Statlander, I'm pleasantly surprised that AEW is finally getting it right with her. Let's not forget that Chris Statlander and Mercedes Mone battled a year ago. And I think it was Full Gear last year as well, if I remember correctly. And she dethroned Jade Cargill. What kind of steered Chris Statlander the wrong way was that awful heel turn that they made her do. And then they had to abruptly end it. And it just was like, it's still better than her laying upside down in the ring looking like a Martian, if you remember those days. But I'm glad she won yesterday. I'm glad Ricochet won the national championship. That was my prediction. If you go back and you hear it, I thought it's time to put some gold on Ricochet and to crown him as the first one. Yeah, I don't have any issue with it. FTR winning, we expected that for the most part. I mean, they've kind of been the Young Bucks, man. That was one that I said, there ain't no way they winning that. But you remember my idea. Now, they're not going to go with my idea, but remember my idea. The Young Bucks show up on Dynamite Wednesday looking to collect $1 million. And you do, even if you do a pre-recorded segment so you make sure Tony Khan nails it just perfectly, you have the Young Bucks knocking on his door. Where's our million? Where's our million? And then you have Tony Khan open the door and look straight at the camera like an old 70s comedy TV show when they're not supposed to act like the cameras are there, but they see them. You have Tony Khan look right at the camera and say, they really thought I was giving them $1 million. Are you stupid? Was this AWA 1990? They ain't giving out no $1 million. And walk away. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. And have Young Bucks curse up a storm. But that's just me. That's just me. Yeah, everybody's saying that the cameras look a little bit clearer today. I was screwing around with a few things. I've had a few people tell me, hey, DT, how's it you just put the screen up without the logos? So I'm kind of working on that still. We'll fluctuate once in a while. But, I hope everybody's doing well. I'm feeling a little bit better health-wise. I'm just a little bit pissed off that the Bethel, my growth, my tumor in my abdomen, they could not remove it. They checked it out, and they said it's in a very difficult spot, and I have to go see a different surgeon for it. I went to see a doctor on Friday just to discuss what the deal is. As far as I know, it's not cancerous. It's inconclusive. So that's better than anything else for now. But everything else I got done. I got the hernia done. I got the other things done. So, I had to take a week off. I warned everyone for a couple of weeks that I may have to take a week off, depending on how I feel. And I was shocked at how many DMs and emails I got. Is everything all right? No show? What's going on? And I was like, I've been saying this for like 3 weeks to a month, but doesn't matter. I'm back. So, we got some stuff to get into. I'll give everybody quick results a little bit later for AAA and AEW Full Gear. I took down notes because I didn't want to leave any matches out. Plus, there was an added match or two for AEW like they always do. But I will say this about AAA. I am very happy that they finally turned El Hijo del Viqueño heel. Now, if they really, really, really want to show, and I've said this before, I know this is going to sound like a broken record, but if I'm WWE and I truly want to show the Mexican wrestling fans out there that we're not going to drastically change the product, the mindset, the landscape, because we're running the show now, you got to bring Alberto El Patron back. Again, in the United States, Alberto El Patron is banished in a lot of ways because of his behavior. And, just because you're not arrested doesn't mean, you're a good guy all of a sudden. It's definitely understandable why WWE would not bring him to the Raw, SmackDown, NXT, which we all knew that all along. But in Mexico, different culture, a little more forgiving, a little bit different landscape. And I think you got to do it. I really do. I think El Hijo del Viqueño turning heel is a way to go. I said way back when that he should turn heel and he should be the one to bring in Alberto El Patron. Wouldn't that be something, man? Wouldn't that be something if we end up down the line, Alberto El Patron and El Hijo del Viqueño against Los Gringos Locos dos. I think that would be pretty cool, but the Lucha Bros are going to be on, I think it's December 20th to December 22nd. I don't have the dates in front of me, but they're going to wrestle for AAA against El Grande, Americano, and Dominik Mysterio. So for everyone out there that's been wanting to see the reuniting of Rey Fenix and Penta, it is happening in AAA, and that's the right way to go. That is absolutely the right way to go. So, what is on your mind? As we do on Sundays, the show is basically your show. You ask the questions. I answer them to the best of my ability. I give my opinions. That's what I do more than anything. If you have a comment you want me to share with the world, I will share it. Obviously, we don't force super chats on anyone, but they help pay the bills, help keep everything. No joke, I literally just got hit with the renewal for the website, and I was like, I gotta reschedule that to bill it in the summertime, because right around the holidays, no. So anybody that does, you'll go right to the front of the line and we answer your questions right away. I know a lot of people have been telling me that I should take the format that a lot of my friends in the podcasting world do and save everybody's super chats to the very end of the show and just get into all of them at the same time. Problem I have with that, and I'm not saying anything, they're right and I'm wrong, or I'm right and they're wrong, but the problem with that is when you're having a discussion show, and I'm talking about a particular, let's say we're talking about John Cena. Someone may send in a super chat talking about John Cena, maybe rebutting something that I'm saying, or maybe to add something. And for me to do a conversation about Cena now and then wait an hour and a half and then get into that person's comment, it's like, it's over. Like the conversation's done. Like, why bring it up again? And another reason being is because, many times we don't know exactly what time we're finishing the show. I usually try to gun for 90 minutes, ends up longer than that. But what happens, you start getting to the end of the show and you want to finish it, and then you realize, I got to get into all this stuff. I think it's a little messy. So maybe we change that next year. By the way, in the next week or 2 weeks, I'm going to share with everyone some of my ideas as far as how we're going to expand in 2026. I plan on doing something 5 to 6 days a week. Some of it will be video, some of it will not. Some of it will be live, some of it will not. There's a couple of ideas, but I want to bounce it across to everyone here on YouTube, our Patreon family, everyone who follows me other places. I definitely want your input to see. There will be some days that I may do the shows actually early. I'm trying to do 1 or 2 days in either the morning or around lunchtime, because that seems to be a time that I keep getting asked in the past. But we'll talk about that like two weeks. I will tell you this, though. If we go 5-6 days, shows will be shorter. Mondays will be the same. Sundays will be the same. But during the week, half an hour, or maybe make Mondays just 90 minutes, hard 90, and that's it. And Sundays make a hard 90, and that's it. But I will also tell you this. I'm not forcing 5 days just to do 5 days. If the formats everybody wants, then we'll do it. But, a lot of people are telling me, you should cover NXT after it finishes live, or cover AEW after it finishes live. And I don't mind doing that. The problem is there's 1,000 other shows doing that as well at the same time. And, why should I stay up until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning for 100, 200, 300 people that tune in live, where I could just record it the next day, on a good night's sleep, and then upload it for everyone and they could tune in at their leisure. I don't ever tell someone not to tune into someone else's show. But, if people are going to choose other people's shows live, and I'm live also, then what's the point of me being live, right? So I have some ideas. I promise you it won't be overload. You will not get tired of me. I promise you that. Everything will be different. So, all right. Let's get into your questions. I want to shout out everybody who is live. Big shout out to Austin Nance, a friend of the show, channel member, moderator. He's a man of all trades. So he is holding down the ship. Guardian of Chaos, my love to you as well. Legend, not just in indie wrestling here in the Northeast, but beyond. So much love to you. And thank you very much, Chaos, for liking what I said the other day about Tony Khan. It's interesting. Let me open up everyone with this, and then we'll get into your questions. I just want to make one quick comment. I watched the entire appearance of Tony Khan and Ariel Helwani. And, I didn't rehearse this. Whatever comes to my mind, that's what I say. That's been my motto since 1997. But the thing is, I I don't know what people were expecting. You know, I made a joke on the Wednesday news update, and I said, did some people think that the night before Tony Khan fell asleep and then had a nightmare in the middle of the night, Darth Vader woke him up from the planet Vulcan and threatened to melt his brain if he didn't just tell everything straight up, shoot on Ariel Helwani? And for those that were like, DT, where is that from? I know I heard that somewhere. Where the hell? That was from Back to the Future, one of my favorite movies of all time. It's from Back to the Future. Remember when the geek was told he's got to take Lorraine to the dance, otherwise they're going to melt his brain? You know, what did people expect? That Tony Khan was suddenly going to transform his attitude, his mindset, the way he answers questions? The guy is in his 40s. It's obvious that he is not good with confrontation. All right, it's obvious he's not good with confrontation. You know, I laugh along with Jim Cornette. I laugh along with K100. I laugh along with Vince Russo, Bischoff, and everyone else. But I think they all realize something, that, you know, the reason why Tony Khan goes on these shifts to talking about Dynamite and having the greatest year ever, and we're having an amazing pay-per-view, and we just had this, we just had that. The reason why he does that is not because he's trying to dodge a question. I think that's the one thing that too many people get wrong. He's not dodging the question. He's uncomfortable. And what he does is he goes to his safe place. So he thinks of happy things. He thinks of good things. He thinks of things that give him comfort. That's why he does what he does. Now, I'm not a psychiatrist here, but I'm also very, very even in what I say. No one influences me. You know, if someone wants to, you know, financially help me a little bit, I thank them tremendously. And I have friends in wrestling who have sent me and Kev, God rest his soul, a couple of bucks over the years. We never changed our attitude. We always told everything like it is. You know, if we wanted to compliment someone, we did. If we wanted to rip somebody, we did. If we wanted to sometimes tell someone, hey, fuck you, we did. And I got news here. I think people respected it more because they knew that we weren't just saying something to make them feel good. So, you know, with Tony Khan, you have to understand, it's funny, no question, but to turn around and act like, oh, he's doing this again, with leaving that important aspect out, I think that's a little bit wrong. But also, I mean, you know me, guys, 5.5 years, I have been critiquing AEW very, very fair. Praised it when it deserved it, criticized it, made fun of it. And then we've had our share of making fun of Tony Khan. I have given everybody straight up my feelings on what Tony Khan is. You know, he's a child, a billionaire child in a man's body that was never exposed to the street elements out there. And he has too much money to spend, doesn't have a family to spend it on. I told you what I think medically might be up with him. And his father adores him. And his father lets him play. His father probably should have a tighter leash on him, but he doesn't. So Tony Khan is not a stupid man. You see what he does in the business world outside of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I've said that 5.5 years ago. I did a lot of research on him. You'd be shocked in the advertising, that aspect. It's like Rain Man. If you ever saw the movie Rain Man, that's Dustin Hoffman. That's him. But you put him in here, it's like a kid in a candy store. This is his hobby. This is his love. This is him living out his fantasy 30, 40 years. Finally getting to do and putting himself in history. And when that guy is gone 30, 40, 50 years from now, you know, people are going to say, regardless of how you feel about him, people are going to show a little bit of props for how much he cared about wrestling. He's spending hundreds of millions of dollars and in many cases losing it. And we're getting to enjoy it. It's like a guy that runs a giant party and he's just dishing out money. And it's not as much in a return. He's just dishing it out. And he just wants to see everybody dance and have a good time. And he's happy and all that. That's it. That's why Tony Khan and other people there keep saying that 2025 is their greatest year ever. I will admit, some of those podcasters out there are just hustling all of you. They understand what Tony Khan means when he says that. It's not about the rating. It's not about the attendance, not about the ticket sales. It's about mental health. It's about happiness. It's about vibes. It's about everybody in sync backstage, showing up at work and people aren't on eggshells. You just saw a little taste of it when Darby Allin was on Ariel Helwani himself. And Darby Allin said, we cut the cancer out. They cut out as many negative voices and vibes. And remember, I don't think Chris Jericho will ever publicly say it, but this is something that we talked about maybe a year and a half ago, that there was a meeting. There was a meeting, and it was told to Tony, listen, those guys that want out, those guys that are not true AEW, let them go. Let them go. Because they're just going to bring the vibe down. Just let them go. Now you don't just say, hey, go. Then a lot of people might want to get up and go. It's not that simple. But the idea is that this is why it's their greatest year. It's not hard to figure out. It's just people don't want to tell you that, because then it ruins a lot of their argument. And getting back to chaos, what I was saying earlier, I watched the interview and I watched everything he said. And I expected pretty much that. But what I said the night before was that on last Monday's show, I said it. I said, we're all down for a train wreck. We're all down for Ariel Helwani. If he smells blood in the water, Ariel Helwani will rip his nuts out from under him. Ariel Helwani is a pro. And he could fucking slice and dice and ruin Tony Khan during that interview. We said that last Monday, but I said, I'm hoping Tony Khan shows a little bit of maturity and shows a little bit of humility. The humility part was the most important thing. And when he's talking about CM Punk and Jade Cargill and Ricky Starks and Cody Rhodes posing with titles, and they're all from AEW, and you know why that picture was taken, and Ariel Helwani's asking Tony Khan about that you might as well just shoved this salami up Tony Khan's ass. That was a punch in the heart. And Tony Khan showed a little humility. All right. He made sure to bring up AEW's history along with it. And I wrote on social media and I said, you know what? Sometimes you just got to give someone credit. You got to give someone credit. The people out there that went on these tirades, ripping him apart for that interview and calling him this and calling him that, there's nothing Tony Khan would have done that would have changed their mind. Because even if Tony Khan suddenly would have came out there and you remember the scene, what was it, the trial of Eric Bischoff? Was it the trial of Eric Bischoff on Raw where Maria, she was still employed with WWE, Maria always came off as a brain dead bimbo, Maria, remember? And then she in the courthouse? Oh, that was when Mae Young that night went like this. Maria suddenly was talking like a college graduate. And everybody's like, huh? What? If Tony Khan would have done that, they would have ripped him a new asshole. Say, you see? This guy is something. They were going to rip him no matter what. Sometimes you got to just give someone credit. The guy stood up to every question, didn't flat out say, I'm not going to talk about it, can't comment about it, there's illegal this, there's illegal that, there's this, that, this. You got to sometimes give him credit. And probably only about 10 people out there thought that what I said was the right thing. Nobody. Everyone else that ripped him apart, that was the most popular thing to do. And I understand what social media is, but only 10 people actually made a compliment about it. And Chaos was one of them. And like I said on Wednesday, Tony Khan was another one. I don't make it my wallpaper and I don't tattoo it to me. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to start being light on Tony Khan. No, I will continue saying exactly what I say. But sometimes you got to just give someone credit. And, it's a shame. It's a shame to see, how that was handled by a lot of people out there. And listen, they have a right to their opinion. A lot of people are making a shitload of money off of Tony Khan. Let's be honest. It goes in phases. I'm not going to tell people how to run their shows, but there's a lot of people that, make a shitload of money off of his, weaknesses. And, it is what it is. So much love, Robert Kennedy. I don't think that is the Maha, man. Rojo Bear, shout out to you, my friend. 57 months as a channel member here, made man of the family. Thank you very much, my friend, for that. Let's get in some questions, shall we? What do we got here? Hey, I haven't used this little logo at the time. Yeah, look, a super shout out. Let's go over here. Yeah, when we get into those, we could kind of maximize the questions here. What do we got here? Ronnie C. Oh, I saw this. Ronnie, let me get to that in a little bit. Let's talk about a little bit of today, and then I'll get into your Jim Cornette bucket of chicken stuff. Because I thank you for sending that early. And I know a lot of you on occasion will send something early to give me time to prepare or research something. So I have the clips. I will definitely get into that. So we'll get into that in a little bit. Police Squad. Who should Gunther face in the finals of the John Cena Last Time Is Now tournament? Okay. In the finals. Okay, so if I remember this correctly, I don't have the graphic in front of me. Jey Uso is in the semifinal. LA Knight is in the semifinal. Penta will take on... Oh, wait. Jey Uso's taking on Rusev. And LA Knight, we don't know who he's taking on yet. So that's one side, because now they have brackets, everyone. Jey Uso will face Rusev. LA Knight will face a mystery person. That's there. I think Jey Uso will advance. I think LA Knight will advance. No, I don't think Roman Reigns will suddenly be in this tournament. You might end up getting Joe Hendry now, since the NXT, Madison Square Garden stuff that is now in the books. And they lost the mixed tag match against Ethan Page and Chelsea Green. So maybe Joe Hendry gets put in there. But I think LA Knight and Jey Uso will advance to the semifinal. On the opposite side, it's Gunther versus Mello, I believe. And we have Penta versus... Who's facing Penta? Wait, I know who's facing Penta. Penta is facing... Shit. Oh, my God. Oh, Solo Sikoa. Penta is facing Solo Sikoa. So I'm going with Penta to advance. I would enjoy Gunther chopping the shit out of Solo Sikoa, but I don't want to see that. No. I think it's going to be Penta versus Gunther. And that'd be a pretty interesting match to have. And then obviously Gunther will go to the final. I think it comes down to Gunther versus Jey Uso or Gunther versus LA Knight. The funny thing is, I think WWE has done a better job with Jey Uso over the last 2 weeks, but it's only been 2 weeks. If you put Jey Uso in the final against Gunther, I think he'll get booed. Not tremendously, but I think Jey Uso will get a share of boos. Plus, Jey Uso is going to be in Survivor Series. So I don't see, I think it's going to come down to LA Knight versus Gunther, but LA Knight is not prevailing. Obviously Gunther is going to take on Cena. I just hope it's not Jey Uso and Gunther. Now, keep in mind, guys, you know why WWE may go Gunther, Jey Uso? Because of the history. Think about it. Jey Uso had made Gunther tap. Let that sink in. Gunther and Jey Uso have some pretty substantial history. And WWE, they're not, just because there's some noise in the internet wrestling community and me and a bunch of others out there, doesn't mean suddenly they're going to divert plans. WWE may absolutely go Gunther and Jey Uso, because Jey Uso, you can hear the promos now. I beat him before. I beat him again. I beat him before. I beat him again. He held down to me, but I won. So I could see those promos coming. But I'm going to go with Gunther versus... I'm going to go with Jey Uso, man. I think, I kind of feel Jey Uso. I think what it comes down to is, and remember this, I just thought of something. That match is not happening before Survivor Series. The finals is not before Survivor Series, my friends. So Jey Uso could work Survivor Series and still be in this tournament. So as much as I would prefer to see LA Knight go to the final, even though he will lose, I'm going to go with Jey Uso. I'm going to go with Jey Uso. But Gunther will beat him. Absolutely will beat him. Thank you, Robert Kennedy, again. Thank you very much for the love. I appreciate that, my friend. Todd Pelkey, where could he find this week's wrestling shows? Everywhere. Go to dontony.com, go to Spotify, go to Apple, go to iTunes. Well, iTunes is technically the same thing. Go on all the platforms. It's everywhere to be featured. So, and by the way, what I did, so everybody knows, on Monday, because a lot of you probably still don't even know, every week I do a channel members version of Monday's show, and I put it this week for everybody to get a little idea of what I do, because I always talk about it, and there's a lot of people that never saw what I mean. What I do is I like other people's shows, but I don't like to see, like when I tune into Jim Cornette's, I don't like seeing just one thumbnail for 3 hours. If I'm talking about a particular topic, I like to put a picture or a video up that represents the discussion that we're having. So I splice in like 100 pictures, some videos during the show so everybody could get a little visual of what we're talking about. Believe it or not, somebody gave me a really awesome idea. I should put the history shows on YouTube and put in thumbnails for all the topics we talk about. That actually would not be that difficult, because we don't get into as many topics as it sounds, but those episodes right now are like 4, 5, 6 hours long. So I would have to put thumbnails across that long of shows. That's a lot. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's not a bad idea. That is not a bad idea. So Scorpio 1117, thank you, my friend. Megan Bayne, AEW Women's Champion in 2026. You know, we're at the 1-year anniversary of the debacle that was Camille. Not her fault, obviously, but it's 1 year. This week is the 1-year anniversary that Camille quit Mercedes Mone. And she hasn't been seen. Actually, you know what's funny? I think it's the 1-year anniversary that Camille quit Mercedes Mone. Now I remember it. It was a year ago this coming week that she quit Mercedes Mone, and then on Rampage, she was laid out. It was either Rampage or Collision. She was laid out, and that's it. That's it. I don't think they're going to do to Megan Bayne what they did to Camille. It's a shame, because I look at Camille, my thumbnail from June about Deonna Purrazzo has aged like fine wine. We saw that in June. And then people like, no, he ain't that stupid. Yeah, they have totally misused Deonna Purrazzo. Horrendous what they've done. Taya Valkyrie to an extent as well. But Megan Bayne, I get a different vibe as far as how AEW sees her. And especially that she does not have a big past, as far as like the big promotions like NWA or TNA. I think they will do a lot better for her. I think she will be a women's champion in 2026. She's got to be. She's got to be. She's too good, and she's too intimidating to not be. Like, you would absolutely, but then think about it. You have these women's tag titles, which I think may end up being Mania Shirakawa and Toni Storm might be the inaugural champs. But that doesn't mean that Megan Bayne doesn't win the tag titles with somebody in 2020. She will hold AEW Gold in 2026. She will. I think she absolutely will. Police Squad, I answered most of this already, my friend, but thank you. What did I think about Full Gear? And he hopes I don't lighten up on Tony Khan because he complimented me on what I said about him. No, I wouldn't lighten up. I will continue giving my analysis how I have before, but I will, if someone deserves credit, I will say it. 15 years ago, 10 years ago, DT probably wouldn't. But now it's like, hey, sometimes you got to give somebody credit. If you're truly honest about it, you gotta. From what I've seen with Full Gear so far, let me put it like this. I have a picture. I brought this up Wednesday on the predictions. And I had a handful of you say, please, I need to see it. When we did predictions for AEW Full Gear, I predicted that Hangman Page would retain the championship on Samoa Joe. Now, I explained that Samoa Joe is a Hall of Famer. My God, hold on. I still got this. Oh, wait, no, it showed up on the screen early. Fuck. Hold that credit card thought here. Look, I still got this. And it still fucking works. It still works. Let me see. What do you got to press? I think you got to... Oh, I never saw this. Look at this. The tape on his wrists. Look at that. I never saw that before. How do you press it? Where do you press? I don't want to press his balls. I don't want to press his... What do you press? Oh, yeah. Look, it still works. Just look.
You're stronger than you look. Watch out. Here comes a muscle buster.
Watch out. Here comes... He sounds like Rocky Balboa.
Time for the Kikina clutch. Watch out. Here comes a muscle buster. You're stronger than you look.
I'm fatter than I look. He's a Hall of Famer. Obviously. He's done everything there is. But Hangman Page, you've just scratched the surface with him as champion. There was no way that Hangman Page was losing the championship this quickly. Unless we hear Hangman Page needs time off. He needs time off. He needs a mental break. Oh, this was something we did back in the TNA days. The funny thing that I always laughed about with Samoa Joe, unfortunately, this is not truly authentic because it doesn't have the fat rolls. Trust me, I know what the fat rolls look like, but it doesn't have the fat rolls on his stomach. Back about 16 years ago, Capital One credit cards had a deal that you could send a picture to them and they will give you a customized credit card with your picture on it. So people would send in like pictures of their dogs, their families, marriage picture, and they would superimpose it on a credit card. So me and Kevin Castle, God rest his soul, decided we were going to send to Capital One just a picture of Samoa Joe's midsection. And they turned it down. So nothing ever gets turned down in the Don Tony and Kevin Castle world. So we made our own credit card. That is the official credit card of the Don Tony and Kevin Castle show. That is Samoa Joe, complete with the fat rolls. That's from 2000. Actually, it was 2008. Because why would we make it good until 2009 if it was 2009 already? I mean, the credit card would be expired. So we made that credit card back then. And Samoa Joe is not thrilled. He won the title yesterday. And now Hook is a part of the ops. And the worst part, the feud of the fucking year for 2024 in AEW probably, Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page burning the house down, almost killing each other. And they're side by side going off the air. It's like, oh, this isn't Roman Reigns and CM Punk. This is no. I saw that and I was like, I don't care about Hook joining ops. Hook is in that company now 5 years. This week is the anniversary of his debut. But so he could still learn and grow. I don't have an issue with what Hook did. But to see Swerve and Hangman, oh, no. That's how I felt about that yesterday. That's how I felt about it. So, yeah. From what I've seen so far, I thought it was very good. I'm very happy that Mark Briscoe won. Very surprised Kyle O'Reilly won. What's up with that? Did Kyle O'Reilly like witness something he wasn't supposed to? You know, and they're kind of like, you know, giving him the extra nice treatment. I'm a Kyle O'Reilly fan, don't get me wrong, but this doesn't feel real. It almost feels like some type of bribe was made, you know, and I don't know, but I still think Mercedes Mone is on the verge of starting to lose some of those belts. But thank you, my friend, thank you. I didn't forget about, who sent that earlier? Ronnie, I will definitely get into the Jim Cornette thing. I'm prepared. I'm prepared. Let's get into the Cornette stuff. We're at 8:45 p.m. right now. At the 9 o'clock hour, which will be 14 minutes from this moment, I will get into your question about Jim Cornette. Because for those that don't know, it is the 6-year anniversary of Jim Cornette officially resigning from NWA, but I think it was more he was going to be fired regardless because of a comment he made during a taping of Power that he talked about Trevor Murdoch in a complimentary way, but brought up bucket of chicken and Ethiopians, and cancel culture went after Jim Cornette. I covered it on the History Show yesterday, but somebody wants me to get into a little further because I had a different take on it. Same take I had in 2019. But I got a little extra bonus. Mark Henry, you know, the one who said a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago, if John Cena truly wants to give back to this business, he should fight Joe Hendry in his final match, and he should let Joe Hendry go over. That's how you truly want to give back to this business. You have John Cena lose to John. I'm like, as soon as I heard that, I'm like, Mark, tell someone who paid $7,000 to see John Cena's final match, and then they go home, that $7,000 credit card bill, and say, he lost to a former TNA guy. Say his name. When my credit card bill comes, can I say his name and he shows up and pays the bill? Who the fuck is going to pay that kind of money to see John Cena lose to Joe Hendry? You know, but then again, I remember Mark Henry, part of the Busted Open family. Nothing personal. Absolutely a fan of what they do, no question. But we understand why they do what they do. You know, that's what you got to do. You saw the shift with Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer about 3 years ago. About 3 years ago, there was this shift, like, you know, we're equally bashing things a little bit too much, and we're starting to lose a lot of people. We're starting hemorrhaging things. So, you know, we got to start being more. I know it's an outdated reference, but it's so iconic looking back on it. But there used to be a TV show called Hannity and Combs. It was a Fox News show that I used to love because Hannity was a Republican and Combs was a Democrat and hardcore as well. And they would butt heads all the time, but they were very good friends. And, you know, it was an excellent show, and you don't have many shows like that anymore. But they decided, okay, you know, we're gonna have differences of views and this and that, and you know, it ended up Brian Alvarez getting more comfortable to be a little bit more authentic with the criticism. But that was a concerted shift to try to stop the hemorrhages of losing people. Look at the stats. That's why everything went behind a paywall. That's why, you know, everything started getting these advertisers. And why does Brian Alvarez, when he plugs his shows, how come he looks the other way? You ever notice that? And I'm saying this jokingly. There's nothing against him. You ever see his videos? You click on it like, hey, they're talking about the confrontation on Raw Monday. And then you click on it. It's like, if you like what we do, keep listening and click that like button and click that subscribe. And why are you looking the other way? Look at me. You want my money? You want me to subscribe? Hey, if you like what I do here, hit the thumbs up, hit the like, subscribe. You get some bonus footage. You have a good time. Get good vibes. I swear to God, you look at the videos. If you liked what we did, join. All right. I don't know how we got on that tangent. So that'll be coming up at the 9 o'clock hour. It's 8:50. So yeah, Benjamin says Kyle O'Reilly made Jon Moxley tap again. You know, Jon Moxley is not helping getting Kyle O'Reilly over. Kyle O'Reilly, if we're honest, he's got a ceiling. Kyle O'Reilly was always best as part of a faction. Unfortunately for Kyle O'Reilly, he had some pretty serious injuries, neck issues as well. And I'm ecstatic that he's back. But still, if you're going to say to me, will Kyle O'Reilly ever become AEW World Champion? I will say absolutely not. I don't think he should. You know, just like every movie has great supporting actors, great supporting actresses. There's nothing wrong with being a supporting actor, a supporting actress. That's what Kyle O'Reilly is. And, you know, I'm very surprised that he got the win at Blood and Guts. I'm even more surprised he got it now. But let me say this, if this makes sense. I don't think Kyle O'Reilly won yesterday. I think Jon Moxley lost, if you catch my drift. Listen, Kyle O'Reilly, happy he got the victory. But when you look at it, as far as the food chain goes, unless you're going to bring back stats, unless you're going to bring back rankings, I don't feel any additional net worth. Let me put it this way. If Kyle O'Reilly would have been an NFT or a stock, the stock did not go up today because he won the match yesterday. I don't have an issue with Jon Moxley giving back. I don't think Jon Moxley is selfish. I think Jon Moxley, you know, has a great time. I think he enjoys what he does. And I think with Jon Moxley, if he enjoys who he's working with, he has no problem doing a job for someone. The problem is, and this is what happened with the Death Riders. It went on for so long and it was so painful that when it finally came to the end with his title reign, you know, people forgot all of the awful, agonizing pain that came along the way. It's kind of like you get like neck surgery, spinal surgery, groin surgery. You get surgery for, you know, all this really painful stuff. You can't shit. You got stones. And for a year, you're just in pain. Oh, it hurts. Ooh, the Samoa Joe figure. And then you start to see a little light at the end of the tunnel. And then you finally, that last moment, you go in and you get a couple of things done and you walk out of there and there's no more pain. And what happens? You got no more pain. You're like, looking back on it, you know, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. You know, I could handle it if it happened again. No. That's what happened with the Death Riser at the very end. When he dropped the title, people were like, you know, the storyline wasn't that bad. I think it elevated people along the way. Let me tell you something. If something is absolute shit, anything above it, anything else that's not as shit gets elevated because of it. People got elevated because it was bad, not because they were good. So that's just an overall take on it. Oh, yeah, no, Benjamin, I don't doubt it. Brian Alvarez was probably looking at a screen. But that fucking screen was 2 years ago. 2 years later. I mean, you're trying to tell me, you'd be like, hey, if you really enjoy what we did, hit that join button, hit that subscribe, tell your friends about it, and we'll be back on the next show. Like, how hard is that to memorize? You know, this is not like he read something for 10 minutes. It's literally 20 seconds long. So, and if the paper is there, here's an idea, put the paper there. You know, when you watch news broadcasts, you think people memorize everything? They're looking at teleprompters. They're like, hi, I'm Don Tony, and here's the Monday news. Jon Moxley won again. Like, they're literally reading. Put it above your thing. I actually did that about 3 years ago. I don't remember what it was, but it was a phrase or part of a song that I wasn't exactly perfectly remembering the lyrics correctly. And I did an episode somewhere and I recited like 2 paragraphs of lyrics. And everybody's like, holy shit, that was impressive. And honest the honest to God answer, I had a piece of paper right above the lens. And if you go back and you watch it, I don't remember what episode it was. You go back and watch it, you'll see my eyes go like this. I was reading off of something. I should get a teleprompter. People are telling me, like, when I do some shows, I should read off a script. I ain't reading off no script. You know, I don't think about stuff before I talk about it. It's why sometimes I get in trouble off of it. If Kyle O'Reilly becomes world champion, will cave under pressure. That's from Byron Cutler. I don't know if it's caving under pressure. It's like, who does he feud with? Like, really, like, who? You could have anybody challenge him, but I just don't see that being like, I don't know. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't, no, it's not happening. It's not happening. But then again, back in my hotline days, I don't know what year Edge debuted. Was it 1997? I don't remember what year Edge debuted, but I remember when Edge, for starting to get a little momentum with Christian, you know, somebody had asked me on my hotline, like, you think Edge would become world champion one day? And I will never, ever forget this. And I admit this. I said this back in like 1998 or 1999. I said, WWE, I said, I just can never picture WWE, the commentator saying, you're WWF World Champion Edge. I'm like, that sounds retarded. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds stupid. I was like, unless they change his name, there's no way you're going to hear saying, you're new World Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Champion Edge. Edge. See how stupid I was back in the day. I admit my stupidity. I tell you, someone asked, what was my favorite match so far that I've seen on Full Gear? Even though Darby Allin lost, I thought Pac versus Darby Allin was really good. To me, I think it should have been a little bit more. I think it should have been more violent and shorter because of everything that Darby Allin has had with the Death Riders leading up to now. But that was really good. You know, I mean, was there really a bad match? I mean, the only thing that I really had an issue with was, you know, the man that used to have the tribal tattoo on his face that resembled a very weird looking penis. I was just baffled by that. Did they do that because Swerve is back from injury? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Remember, my friends, something you got to realize about AEW, and I say this with the utmost sincerity. I swear this is not criticism in any way. WWE brainwashed us over the years that they do what's best for business. You know, best for business. We do bets for business. And you can many times see why WWE goes a certain way, or you could predict a certain way because it's pretty obvious it's what's best for business. With AEW and Tony Khan, though, it's more about the vibe and being in sync, you know, and being just all on the same wavelength. It's not always what's best for business. You know, even when you look at the TV deals, I know people are trying to really make this negotiation with Warner Brothers Discovery, you know, like, oh, AEW, this might turn into WCW 2001. It's going to get sold and they're going to be out. Let me tell you something. You know, I don't think we'll ever see the details, but Warner Brothers Discovery has a sweetheart deal with AEW. It's a sweetheart deal. That's why Warner Brothers listen, no one will ever admit it, but I think back, this is grossly exaggerated, but, you know, when I used to watch ECW late at night in the mid-90s, anybody that's from New York, shout out to all my homeboys out there, especially those that used to be involved in ECW. Late at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, Saturday night, I would watch ECW and the MSG network, Madison Square Garden network. It would go off the air, and then it would become Prime. And, you know, that's when ECW would be on, Prime. And we found out later on that the reason why ECW was on that network at all was because Paul Heyman was paying like an infomercial. Was paying like an infomercial. So this was not that MSG got to have it, must have it, need to have ECW or Prime or anything else. No, it was paid like an infomercial. I think the reason why the TV deal was never made public was because it was a sweetheart deal that Tony Khan, I think, gave more than anybody would ever envision, and AEW and Warner Bros. Discovery benefit from it. Why would you not reveal that to your stockholders, your shareholders? Why would you not reveal to your stockholders the deal that's involved? That's very interesting. And what's even more interesting is that shareholders and stockholders never bring it up. They never say anything. But here's the genius thing that, with all due respect, Dave Meltzer, Jim Cornette, Dutch Mantel, Eric Bischoff, K100, Vince Russo. I don't know about my friends in the podcasting world, but take note of something. They're all given this idea like, ooh, if so-and-so buys the company, they might lose their TV deal. Let's reel this in for a second. You notice something that they've all left out? They've all insinuated that Warner Brothers Discovery owns a percentage of AEW. What happens to that ownership if Warner Brothers Discovery is sold? Is suddenly that ownership going to be transferred over to the new owners? I think Paramount is the front runner in this deal. Someone asked me a few moments ago, who do I think might get this TV deal? I think Paramount. Is it the Ellisons? I don't have the name in front of me. There's no paper above my camera. The Ellisons, I believe, own Paramount. And they want Warner Brothers Discovery because they also want CNN. And there's been some really interesting analysis in the business world that if they can get control of CNN, and Ellison is a big Trump donator, they can control the narrative, no pun intended, with CNN. So there's a bigger picture here than just Warner Brothers Discovery. You know, in the wrestling world, everybody will kind of, tweak it to make it seem like a big wrestling story. But I think at the end of the day, that's where this could be headed. I think, again, Warner Brothers Discovery got a sweetheart deal. If AEW got as much money as the Bethels and the other people have reported, then why didn't they just issue a press release? Why didn't they just make it public? If they got that kind of money, why not just make it public? Everybody else makes their, why hide it? Why hide it? Because if they don't make it public, if you hear the Bethels and the retards of the world keep saying 180 million, 160 million, 144 million, 155 million, 160, they keep saying that enough, you believe it. You believe it. Just like the Max subscribers. Oh, I heard that it's true. Who'd you hear from? Oh, people. And then you realize they heard it from the Bethels and the social media, and everybody repastes it. Yeah, I have heard from numerous sources that Max gets 600,000. Now, once Ariel Helwani comes along, I'm not told the numbers. I personally don't think Tony Khan wants to know the numbers, because once he knows the numbers, if they're awful, and we find out that he knew he had the numbers all along, if you think he dodges everything now, Tony, why did you hide the numbers? Dynamite was an awesome show. Yeah, but Tony, you kept saying that you didn't know them, but now we have proof that you knew the numbers all along, and you left it out there that it was only 1/5. AEW Full Gear was amazing. We're having the best year yet. And Ghostbusters. Everybody knows why I said that. Props. Sometimes you don't want to know the bad news. It's because once you know the bad news, like, fuck. King Arthur says ECW aired on a Spanish language channel late on a Saturday night in Boston, and it certainly was an infomercial. Yeah. Listen, I remember those nights, man. I no joke, on some nights, I always set my VCR. I still have my VCR tapes somewhere. I have boxes everywhere, but I still have my VCR tapes. I taped it every night, but I also set my alarm for like 1:57 a.m. And I would get up 2 o'clock in the morning and I'd watch it and then go right back to bed again. I would forget half of what I seen because I was half too tired, and then I would watch it the next day. All right. Looking at questions. Oh, we're a little past 9. Should I ruffle some feathers? Should I ruffle some feathers? All right. Before I do that, we got another super shout out I'd like to make, and then we'll get into a little bit with Jim Cornette. Jim Con says, instead of turning Cena heel a decade ago, maybe tag him with an outgoing personality on his level like Daniel Bryan or CM Punk. When I think of John Cena a year ago, you know what the first thing that comes to mind as far as tag teams go? John Cena and Randy Orton versus the Raw roster. If you guys have never heard about that before, look it up. John Cena and Randy Orton versus the Raw roster. Randy Orton, it was tolerable, but if you were already like getting nauseous about Super Cena, when that was announced, it was like, oh God, please, no. Like, God, can it get any worse? It was John Cena and Randy Orton versus the Raw roster. Do not put John Cena as a tag team with anybody. He did have some tag teams. He teamed up with our favorite Hartford law genius, David Otunga. Remember, they were one half of the tag titles. Oh, trust me, that's coming. He'll be posting a video. What was it like teaming up with John Cena? He'll make it even better. What was it like being one half of a tag team champion with John Cena? That's all coming. Don't worry, that's coming. If it hasn't happened already. I don't want John Cena 10 years ago teaming up with anybody. I think it was good that he was not really consumed with the tag team division. He did hold gold for periods of time, but it was very, very short. Listen, in hindsight, I understand why John Cena got pushed the way he did. It's totally understandable. And look what's happening now. Look what's happening now. It's wonderful to see it come full circle. Because to me, and I've always said this, one thing that's beautiful is for anyone out there that ever, that followed us from the beginning or is discovering our old shows now, Kev and I covered John Cena's entire career. We covered his entire wrestling career. And the one thing is, people have asked over the years, when did you start feeling a little bit different about John Cena and his role in WWE? Don't get me wrong. We still were not big fans of John Cena at all. But there was, to me, when he won the United States Championship, to me, that was the turning point. When he had the matches with Sami Zayn, when he had it with Kevin Owens, when he had the matches with AJ Styles, for me, I don't know about for anyone else, for me, that was the moment when I said, you know what? Okay, I'm starting to accept John Cena. Like, okay, now I could tolerate him. And it built from there. And, if we're also honest, he hasn't really had many matches in recent years. He's wrestled more the last 2 years than he did, I think, maybe in like 5 years before that. Trust me, when I do the history show every week and I'm looking at results and recaps, John Cena's absent quite a bit. So that's, for me, that was the turning point. But no, I think John Cena away from the tag team division is definitely the right way to go. Allow everybody to enjoy the other aspects of it. All right. I want to get into this briefly. This came in about an hour before we went live. Ronnie says, Happy Thanksgiving. A favor to ask. I heard the last history show where I talked about Jim Cornette being fired from the NWA for the bucket of chicken remark. Can I please discuss this more? My take was quite different than most. Okay. This was covered on the history show yesterday, but I'm gonna expand a little bit of my opinions because the history show is not really supposed to be for opinion. I do interject a little bit, but I stay out of it. This week is the 6-year anniversary of Jim Cornette leaving NWA because of a remark that he made. And it was extremely controversial at the time. Cancel culture came at him at a force that we probably did not see much of before that. I mean, honestly, if you look back at that, this might have been the first time that the IWC viciously went after him. And, you know, the one thing I will say, opening up with this, is that I was shocked as to how many people who did not come to the defense of Jim Cornette. Very, very shocked. I mean, I get it. People in WWE is not going to voice out about it because it's still run under Vince McMahon, and you're not going to give public takes about other people in wrestling. So I get anybody who was employed in WWE at that time. But outside of that, you know, there was quite a few people that were absent. Now, some people who could have spoken up were dead already. So, you know, it couldn't have happened. But here's the thing. And I'll be very, very brief with this. Back in 2019, when this happened, and this was prior to COVID, I did research that no one else did out there. And Kev, God rest his soul, to his credit, he remembered some of this too, and he steered me in the right direction to where I needed to look. And, you know, I'm going to share with everybody the clip right now of what he said. And then I got more audio for you that if you've never heard it before, it is going to blow your fucking mind. And I will tell you my take on this. First off, let's share the clip of what Jim Cornette said that here, let me set this up. Trevor Murdoch is wrestling Nick Aldis, the GM of SmackDown. Trevor Murdoch is wrestling Nick Aldis on an episode of NWA Power. You have Joe Galli and Jim Cornette on commentary. And Jim Cornette, to put over the toughness of Trevor Murdoch, said this.
Well, there's a handshake. I don't think that Aldis is taking this as seriously as he might should. Trevor Murdoch, he's mad, bad, and dangerous to know. He's the only man I've ever known that can strap a bucket of fried chicken on his back and ride a motor scooter across Ethiopia. Trevor Murdoch can take care of himself.
Big mistake. To say the least, big mistake. Now, I just realized there's another audio clip that I got to find. There is another audio clip that I must... Okay, I did find it. Thank God. Thank God. Could not have this segment without this clip. Jim Cornette made the remark that Trevor Murdoch is so tough, he's the only person he knew that could strap a bucket of chicken in the back of his scooter or moped and ride around Ethiopia. That was in 2019. Jim Cornette made a grossly outdated joke, okay, if that's how you want to put it. You see, for those that are younger out there, back in 1984, 1985, Ethiopia had a huge famine going on. Hundreds of thousands of Ethiopians died because of starvation. It was all over television. They did these immensely gigantic, didn't they do like a Live Aid or something to raise money for Ethiopia? I remember those commercials, and it was sad. Sometimes it was like the animal commercials. You ever see the animal? And now they're all going to fucking come out because it's the winter time and it's the holidays. You know, they used to show those commercials and they'd show all these kids starving and dying. And it was just awful to see. And at that time, you had no internet. The only way you could donate is by calling a toll-free number and, doing it that way. And it was awful. And Jim Cornette was referencing something that happened in 1985. Now, they're still dealing with famine today. I mean, make no mistake about it. But Jim Cornette, the problem is, because he is a product of the 70s, the 80s, more than even the 90s to an extent, Jim Cornette, and I'm being straight up, I'm always down the middle what I say. And these are all my opinions. Nothing is ever influenced. If you ever tune into Jim Cornette shows now, even with Brian Last, you always hear them bring up 70s and 80s. Always. Whether it's the guest programs or he's talking about the Midnight Express, the Rock and Roll Express, he's talking about NWA, he's talking about this, and that. Jim Cornette will always bring up the 70s and the 80s more than anything else. That is his time. All right. So when you're now doing commentary in 2019, and again, I'm not defending that remark. That remark was uncalled for, definitely warranted being removed and maybe somewhat suspended. However, I do have a problem with one thing with it, although I understand why. And trust me, we'll get into Mark Henry's audio in a moment. The problem is that Jim Cornette, when you're doing commentary and you're trying to talk about someone, Jim Cornette is a product of the 70s and the 80s. So if he is trying to put someone over, especially their toughness, his mindset is bring up something from yesteryear. Just like I said earlier with Tony Khan. No, I'm not comparing what Jim Cornette said to Tony Khan. But Tony Khan, when he gets uncomfortable, and if he's got, his go-to is bring up something recent that was positive for AEW. This is and that. So Jim Cornette, in his mind, I used this line before, so I'll use it on Trevor Murdoch. Not understanding that we're in the 21st century. And you cannot, there is no excuse for that. And everything is under a microscope now. So Jim Cornette makes this remark, and cancel culture goes after the NWA. Understand, this is Billy Corgan's promotion. This is Dave Lagana's working for, I think it was Dave Lagana. And they're not big enough to withstand this monstrosity, this tidal wave of negativity. And here is the issue. Almost everyone out there that threw the R word towards Jim Cornette were not around in the 70s and the 80s. All right, as far as watching wrestling. Mostly everybody on social media that was calling Jim Cornette a racist, if you look at their age, they were not around in the 70s or the 80s to understand that Jim Cornette has never been accused of racism. If you just look at his political background and his love for Obama and, his love for certain people in wrestling and the praise that he's been given over the years by people who are black in wrestling, if you understood Jim Cornette's history in wrestling, racism is not part of it. And I'm not sticking up for him. The problem is that it didn't matter in 2019, his history. He said it, and that was the problem. And then what makes it worse is Jim Cornette is looked at as a fossil doing commentary on NWA. And then you get Mark Henry. Mark Henry, who worked with Jim Cornette, I think in the late 90s when he was in WWE. Mark Henry goes on TMZ at that time in 2019, and Mark Henry says this.
It just hurts, man. I as much as I can say is I'm disappointed, and I hope that he can try to fix this. But you know what, man? Some people just don't like people of color.
Do you feel like that is his belief? Does he not like black people?
No, I never felt that. I mean, he told me stories about him working real closely with Junkyard Dog and different people throughout history, and who I reminded him of and stuff like that. I never in my life saw it. Never saw that.
Was this just like a really bad ill-conceived joke then, Mark?
I mean, I can't say that. I don't know. All I can say is what I saw. I just almost swallowed my face in. Like it made my skin itch. And I was just like, why am I so damn angry? Like, this is Jim. What are you doing? Like, it's just completely out of character. And you know what? Some people have bad moments, but them the kind of moments you don't have. I inherently love all people. I don't care what color you are.
Mark, if Jim Cornette was watching this right now, what would you say to him?
I would say, Jim, please apologize and mean it. And if you don't mean it, then go all the way Darth Vader and tell I just don't like black people. And at least I know who you are.
Just say you don't like black people. You know, as I'm listening to this, I see some of you posting. New Jack and Smoky Mountain Wrestling. We shared the clip on Monday's show, ironically. Junkyard Dog, the love for Jim Cornette and vice versa. So to have, and listen, I don't know who that schmuck was from TMZ, but obviously that schmuck was trying to go in a certain direction. And here's the thing, you know, Mark, why didn't you to discuss this with Jim Cornette privately? Or better yet, I hold the thought with Mark Henry, everyone. I got something for you that's going to blow your mind, and you could go look it up for yourself. You'll find it, and it'll leave you asking a question. But before we get to that, here's my honest take before I share some more audio with you. This was not a black thing in Jim Cornette's eyes. This was poverty. If you go back to the 80s, 70s, it was about gas prices and inflation, but there was no iconic moment. Vietnam, no. In the 1980s, the one story that captivated the world about poverty was Ethiopia. Jim Cornette, not to defend him, but Jim Cornette's mind, he's talking about poverty. And it didn't matter if Ethiopians were white, black, red. They were starving. And imagine somebody going down the street with food strapped to their bike in a poverty. Everybody would storm it. And his mindset is a bucket of chicken, because if you have the back of a bike, what are you going to strap? You going to strap a hero? No, you're going to strap a pizza. It's going to go, so you think is, a bucket, bucket of chicken. You can't say that in this day and age, because everybody will immediately go racist, 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 racist. So you go back to 1987. 1987, the audio is awful. This is something that I had buried in my collection for years. But in 1987, he was talking about Dusty Rhodes and Big Bubba Rogers, a.k.a. the Big Boss Man. Jim Cornette said this.
Well, Dusty Rhodes, I know you're an expert on everything that smells like a horse. But this year in those Buckhouse Stampedes, we got a few surprises for you. And I understand you got that United States heavyweight title belt around your waist now. Well, the United States Tag Team Champions, being the All-American boys that they are, Dusty Rhodes, being the American dream that they are. They're the American dream that grow up looking good, grow up winning belts and titles and money. That's what the American dream is. And either one of them, Beautiful Bobby or Sweet Stan, Dusty Rhodes, might just challenge you for that U.S. heavyweight belt that you got around your waist so proudly from Starrcade. Beautiful Bobby, I think, would take it. Sweet Stan, I think, would take it. We might have to just flip a coin to see, Dusty Rhodes, who gets the honor of whipping your you-know-what and taking that gold away from you. And Big Bubba Rogers, the only man in the world that can strap a bucket of fried chicken on his back and ride a motor scooter across Ethiopia. He's going to win the Buckhouse Stampedes, brother. Fans, we'll be back right after this timeout.
You would have thought 2 years after the famine, that would be even worse. Now, you're going to say to me, well, DT, it's the 80s, and it's so regional, and no one in the wrestling world, for the most part, would ever have seen that or remember it. Lawrence Taylor. Black man, Lawrence Taylor. WrestleMania, 1995. Hyping up Bam Bam Bigelow versus Lawrence Taylor. Monday Night Raw. Internet, yes, existed. On Monday Night Raw, they're hyping up Lawrence Taylor and WrestleMania. Bet you guys never knew about this. Mark Henry would work for the WWF less than 2 years after this clip I'm going to share with you. Now, how is it that every week for decades now, Monday Night Raw episodes are online, they're available, and no one before that remark towards Trevor Murdoch ever brought this to surface? No one in wrestling ever brought it up. Mark Henry never seen a breathe. I'm not diminishing Mark Henry, but sometimes when you hear something, you know, if you know that person notoriously is not a racist and there's no signs of being one, why go on TMZ and tell the whole fucking world a viewpoint instead of just going to the person and saying, man, what's this about? You know, and if he doesn't answer you, then you say, listen, I tried to reach out to him. He didn't answer. You know, because people, I respect Mark Henry. The man is a role model. That's why your words are even more, you know, I don't want to say dangerous, but why your words, you have to be really careful because people will remember it like me. And you start telling a whole new generation of wrestling fans that know nothing about Jim Cornette's history and say, that was racist. That was racist. He's a racist. He's a racist. I'm not defending Jim Cornette. He absolutely should have been suspended, and that was awful, and it was unnecessary. It was wrong in 1987. It was wrong in 2019, and it was wrong in 1995.
It just hurts, man. I you know, as much as I can say is I'm disappointed.
No, wrong. Sorry, that was Mark Henry. No. Here, 1995, take two.
If Lawrence Taylor wants to impress somebody, if he wants to impress me, he ought to do something really good. He ought to fly on a commuter plane without a parachute. He ought to hire OJ's defense team and win his case. He ought to strap a bucket of fried chicken on his back and ride a motor scooter across Ethiopia. Impress me, Lawrence Taylor. That's what I dare you to do.
There's more. I just haven't found them yet. How come nobody spoke out from 1995 until 2019? Whenever that replay came on the WWE Network, on YouTube, and everywhere else, no one ever brought it up. But suddenly when NWA Power, that was it. Again, Jim Cornette, absolutely the wrong thing to say. Do I think in his mind he was making fun of black people? No, not at all. But you can't say that when people immediately think black people, chicken, racism. And that's why, even though it was a poverty joke, it was a famine joke, Ethiopians are African. And you brought up chicken. And people that don't know Jim Cornette's history, that don't know or have a perception of what's in here and what's in here, ooh, chicken, African, racist. And that's what happened in 2019. Again, it's a shame that more people didn't speak up for Jim Cornette, but I think we all know the reason why. Because anybody that would have stuck up for Jim Cornette would have been labeled a racist also. Lawrence Taylor apparently didn't have an issue with it. The entire net had no issue with it since 1995. People were petrified to open up their mouth. So, all right. So there you go. There's my extended version. I hope you got your money's worth. No, I appreciate the support. But, you know, to me, that was a pretty big deal in 2019. And unfortunately, you know, the controversial aspect of it is what everybody will remember from it. Again, we could find 10 clips of Jim Cornette saying this. It doesn't make it better, and it doesn't justify what he said. But the more you hear it, the more you realize that this was a joke about poverty and food. This was not about black and chicken. And, I think it's a shame. It's a shame that to this day, people still call Jim Cornette a racist. And, I disagree with a lot of his political views. Absolutely. But, I don't recall any history. If anything, my God, people were bringing up, just what he did with the gangsters. And you bring up Junkyard Dog and other people. I mean, he has a positive history. There's nothing negative about that. So, all right. I hope, listen, if you have a comment about it, love to see it posted. But I wanted to bring that up because we discussed it yesterday and I was offered a nice chunk of change to talk about it. So we did. All right. So we're running 85 minutes. We still got a little less than a half hour. So, all right, Roddy, not strong, Roddy Howard, Roderick Howard, Roddy Howard. Who's my pick to replace Sheamus in the Cena tournament? I would go with Joe Hendry. I think a lot of people wanted Joe Hendry in it. I would have, I was surprised at how many people loved what I said on Monday. I think Matt Cardona and LA Knight would be an awesome tag team. I think they would be, if they could sign Matt Cardona, if he really wants to sign. That's a discussion we leave on Monday, but I don't, Matt Cardona, they already blew their load with, and Dolph Ziggler, they already blew their load with. So I personally don't think you need to bring in another TNA guy. No, you're not bringing in Adam Copeland. You're not bringing in anyone else. I would bring in Joe Hendry. You had Javon Evans in there. He put in a great performance against Gunther. I would just put Joe Hendry in there. I think it would be a nice, lighthearted, fun moment. And I also think against LA Knight, there'd be some comedy in there as well. So I would go with Joe Hendry. Or, here's another one. Here's another one that I thought about this too. And I said, wow, if WWE really, really wants a troll and really wants to get it over a little bit more, put Dirty Dom in there. Problem is, he ain't going to beat LA Knight. Put Dirty Dom in there. Put Dominik Mysterio in. I mean, I know Dom is wrestling at Survivor Series anyway, but if you really want to troll, put Dominik Mysterio in there. Could have put Randy Orton in there. Randy Orton versus LA Knight? That's it. But I wouldn't do that. If Randy Orton was on TV more, more frequently, I would say you could try that, but I would go Joe Hendry. Tristan says it's the 30th anniversary of Nitro. What's my favorite Nitro moment? His is Goldberg beating Hogan. Favorite Nitro moment? Oof. Wow, that's not as easy. You know what? I know this is awful. Nah, you can't use this. I would go with when Shane McMahon was on simulcast because I predicted the whole thing. That's what made me legendary in 2001. People still that support me remember that hotline report. For those that don't know, Captain Ivan, good guy. He had a hotline at the time, and I was doing my hotline too, and he had me on a week before. It was actually 2 days before. It was March 24th, 2001. And Ivan says, what do you think is going to happen on Raw Monday? And I said, Shane and Vince have been feuding as far as WWF goes. And, Vince bought WCW. I said, maybe they could do something where, we think Vince, bought WCW, but actually Shane bought WCW. We'll have Shane having WCW feud with Vince in the WWF. And we talked about that 2 days before, and exactly that's what happened. And I wish the fucking internet was bigger at that time, because I would have if there was a way to screenshot and, I would have kept all of that. But that's probably my favorite moment, because when I watched it, I was like, holy shit, it happened. Probably something with Jericho. Maybe Jericho doing his stuff with Goldberg. Maybe Jericho with his list. What is it, 1,001 holds or whatever? I don't know if there's a particular moment. Maybe when Lex Luger won the World Championship, because that was pretty surreal. Lex Luger showing up, Hall and Nash showing up. Maybe when they powerbombed Bischoff off the stage. You know, it's funny because maybe even Goldberg winning the championship, because that was a pretty cool moment, man. That was the Georgia Dome, 40,000 fans. It felt big. You could even see Goldberg. If you remember when he picked up Hogan right before he picked to do the jackhammer, he looked at the camera and he went like this and he had a smirk on his face. You could tell that he's like, yeah, I'm going to win this. So Austin says, have I heard anything about Randy Orton? I think it's more creative than anything else right now. Haven't heard anything about injuries. They're going to be very careful with Randy Orton. Randy Orton still wants to wrestle 5 more years. Right now, everything is surrounded by Cena and Survivor Series. And right now, Randy Orton is not a part of that. Yeah, we still think that Randy Orton could ultimately feud with Cody Rhodes for that championship. You know, Cody Rhodes, if he's going to keep that title all the way to WrestleMania, he needs some opponents. And you look at that SmackDown roster, you know, it's not a great selection to choose from. So that is still something that they could be holding in the pocket. I think they're just waiting for the right moment. So I don't think it's more than anything else. I mean, obviously, you know, tread lightly with Randy Orton and you prolong his career even more. But right now, I think he would get lost in the shuffle, which is awful to say about Randy Orton. So, Kevin Milwaukee, how would I have booked Timmy Arson top babyface turn in WWE if he had progressed past the Zombie? Here's the thing. Timmy Culkins was a very good friend of mine. He was a good friend of mine. I wrote his insurance. Wasn't a great driver, but he was part of my Blackheart Sports Entertainment Hotline, my infamous Blackheart shirt. If you ever look at those shirts, I still have it. Maybe I'll wear it next week. On the back, it's zombie. It's zombie, damage, arson, funker. Funker was my nickname. Timmy Arson was on our hotline too. I was very good friends with Timmy Arson. He was the ECW zombie, for those that don't know. He's the one that came out on the first ever WWE edition of ECW. This is my honest take on Timmy Arson. Timmy Arson had an amazing look. Not the zombie character. Timmy Arson, if you ever saw him, he was tall. He was like 6'2", but he was stocky, jacked, could wrestle his ass off, trained at Gleason's. Johnny Rods did a great job with him. But he lacked charisma. He was not good with promos. He would even say borderline dyslexic at times. Timmy Arson, I don't think ever would have been able to make it in WWE. I'm being honest. I mean, and let me tell you something. Timmy always wanted honesty. You know, Timmy did interviews back then, gave me credit for him still doing the zombie character. Because when he no longer did the ECW thing, that stint, everybody just labeled Timmy Arson as the ECW zombie. And Timmy's like, I don't want to be known in my career as the zombie. You know, I'm Timmy Arson. I'm a good, you know, I can wrestle. He's got the physique. He's got the look. I don't want to be forever known as the zombie. And we did a couple of shows together. And one time I drove him home and I told him, I said, look, you know, kids love you. I said, you know, you're a center of attraction. I said, you don't have to just be the zombie. You could be Timmy Arson too. I said, but, you know, turn this into success. Have fun with it. Be the friendly zombie. Like the little kids, if anybody ever sees that picture, I don't have it available in this computer right now. But if anybody ever remembers the picture, you see me posing with Zombie, I'm pinching his nipples. And I'm trying to get him to laugh, and I'm pinching his nipples. And the reason why I'm doing that is because anytime the kids would run up to him, they would want to pull his hair. They would want to grab this and do that. They just wanted to play with him. Not, in a perverted way. And he became the friendly Zombie. And we had him work in VPW repeatedly. He actually got involved in a match that I was involved in, and he's just chasing everybody around. And he made crazy amount of money. He would sell Polaroids like a madman. And he had fun doing it. Unfortunately, he had issues outside of wrestling, substance. And a lot of it we were not even aware of. And he was taken way too soon. But he would have never made it in WWE. And he knew that too. Doing the Zombie thing, in the beginning. And let me tell you something. For me, one of the most awesome moments that I ever had as a hotline host, as a podcaster, as a wrestling fan, as a friend. The first night that WWE's ECW went on the air, about 2 hours before, Timmy calls me up. He calls Matt Zombie up, calls Brian Damage up. He says, make sure you watch the show tonight. Why? What's going on? Just watch it. We thought he was going to be a security guard. We thought that we were going to see him on camera and he was going to be a security guard. He ended up becoming a Trivial Pursuit question. Who's the first ever person to be on WWE's version of ECW on TV? It was him. And when we saw it, we were almost crying. I was literally sitting at home like, holy shit, it's Timmy. We never saw the Zombie thing before. He never did the Zombie character before that. He just called us about 2 hours before. He says, make sure you're watching ECW tonight. Why? What's going on? I can't tell you. Just promise me you'll watch. And I was home and I was like, fucking awesome, man. Fucking one of the Blackhearts, that was awesome. And it was just a fun memory, man. Just beautiful. Beautiful. Miss Timmy. I don't want to rehash it, but, a lot of you may remember the infamous penis in the glass story with Timmy. Should I share it? Yeah, we'll save it for another day. We've talked about it before. I could tell the story. He's dead. What are you going to do, Timmy? Strike me from up there? We went to a VPW show, and we were involved in it. And VPW events were held in the Knights of Columbus. And anybody that's ever been in the Knights of Columbus, they usually have like a bar area. And after the show's over, we would hang out in the bar and have maybe a drink or two. Everybody's getting together, having good times. So there was this girl. I don't remember her name, but there was this girl who, if we're using the term, I don't want to use the R term, but she definitely was one that liked to go with the wrestlers. Me, I never had the opportunity. I wasn't her type. But she had a camera. And believe it or not, I have this show, and I have it in the computer too, and I could show you in the future this segment with Zombie and everything, and you'll see her taking pictures front row. She had a camera, and we were in the bar. And long story short, she's got the camera, and she's hitting on Timmy. Now, Timmy's still dressed as the Zombie. You don't shower. That's not what you do at the Knights of Columbus at VPW. You get dressed in the locker room and you go home. So this is immediately after the show. We're in the bar, hanging out, and she's hitting on Timmy, and he's still in complete Zombie character. So she went and left to talk to someone, and she left her camera and something like on the bar. So my friend Timmy sees the camera, and he says, guys, I'll be right back. And he takes the camera and he goes into the bathroom. And I'd say about 5 minutes later, he comes out and he's just got this hilarious look on his face. Like, what did you do? So he told us later on, he took a glass that was on the sink, and he pulled his pants down and he put his penis in the glass. And then in the mirror, he was doing selfies going like this. But you didn't see down there. He didn't take, that's, he was just posing with it, but that's what he did. Disgusting. I get it. Disgusting. But the only point I'm trying to make is just imagine someone that's dressed like a zombie in a bathroom and is taking pictures and he's got his penis in a glass. It was a plastic cup, by the way, because I remember somebody saying, like, you didn't put it back on the sink, right? So I can just imagine somebody from Knights of Columbus like, oh, I forgot my glass. I got to brush my teeth. Oof. You would never, ever catch me doing something like that. So, yeah. It was kind of funny, her flirting on him, because he was in total zombie mode. I was just imagining, like, what was she looking to do and where was she looking to do it? So, what's my prediction for Survivor Series? Honestly, I can't see Drew McIntyre losing twice. I can't see him losing Survivor Series. I think Roman Reigns' team is going to lose. I have a feeling Jimmy Uso is going to turn. I think Jimmy Uso possibly joining the division is still in play. The idea of Seth Rollins fucking with the bloodline without him even being there could be part of it. Drew McIntyre was part of the Judgment Day. Remember that? The handshake with Rhea Ripley? And he lost. I can't see him losing twice. I can't see Bronson Reed losing twice. I'm going to go, as of right now, look, this is not an official prediction. Right now, as we speak, Drew McIntyre's team wins. I just can't see them losing. And I still think Jimmy Uso will turn. A little political question. Michael Gazar says, Trump Mondani meaning, does it give me any hope for New York City? Well, I don't want to get political here, but I'll say this very quickly. I've said already that a lot of things that Mondani wants to do, he can't. You just can't. I mean, even if it's good intentions, you can't. Are you going to allocate money for grocery stores, for impoverished people? You might as well just give them more food stamps. Give the money to the people and let the people just go and get what they need. Plus, I could only imagine, the accusations that second and third rate food is going to be available at these establishments. The free buses thing cannot happen for obvious reasons. I think what's going to happen is he's going to be forced to be more left center than anything else. And he's 33 years old. Yes, a lot of people think he's communist. I don't particularly care for politics at all anymore, but he's going to realize that a lot of what he wants to do, he can't. And if he talks a good game and knows he can't get things done, but says it anyway, he will not survive. I mean, he'll survive for 4 years, but he'll get voted out almost immediately. I hope he does well. Again, I'm one of those that no matter who is president, I don't ever want to wish them ill. I didn't like Obama. I didn't like Biden. I liked Trump originally, and then during COVID, I started getting pissed off. But I never ever said I want the country to fail because I don't like that person. I want New York to do well. I don't want, my bills to go up. I don't want other people's expenses, my family, their taxes. I want to see New York do well. So if he could make New York better, fine with it. I just don't, there's too many people I know that want to see this city get fucked up just to show that his ideas aren't going to work. I don't want that. I'd rather see things do well. So that's just me. That's just me. Not JPEG. Chances of Brie Bella helping out her sister Nikki to win the women's title. Stephanie ain't losing it yet. Nikki Bella, listen, I did see last week Brie Bella says she's got one last run in her. And I politely said to my computer screen, yeah, you have one last run to the grocery store before it closes. I give Nikki Bella credit because she's doing more than I thought that she would since she returned. And I don't know if Brie Bella has the same. Personally, I don't think Brie Bella will come back. I mean, I could see it, because of the Bellas and, but it has nothing to do with Bryan Danielson. Has nothing to do with Bryan Danielson. But I think if Brie Bella truly wants to get back into wrestling, she'll have a much, 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 much easier time in AEW than WWE. And if we're being also honest, Brie Bella not that great of a wrestler, and I think she would even admit it. So having one last run for what? For what? To have a match so your kid could see it? That's what we're looking forward to the next 10, 20 years. This is the new trend. It happened with Goldberg. It happened with MVP. It's good. And I'm not saying anything against those two. They backed it up. They could actually work a little bit in the ring still. But the new trend is those who are past their prime, they all want to come back because they want their kid to see them work. You had it recently with Kelly. I don't want to sit ringside. I want my kids to see me do something more. So you're going to see as time goes by and the last 20 years of wrestlers that have children, they're all going to want to come back because they want their kids to see them have that moment live in the WWE, hopefully at a WrestleMania. That's what they want. And I don't blame them. Kelly kind of like dodged it. She dodged it with Chris Van Vliet also. But, she could have just said, look, if I come back, I want my kids to see me in the biggest stage of them all. I want to do something like a WrestleMania, something like that. I don't want to just be front row. It's nothing against anybody that was there. I love them all. But, just come out and say it. People will respect you more. But like, oh, you remember what she did with Chris Van Vliet? Oh, I think my husband was working on the train tracks. And then 30 seconds later, I think my husband was off that day. And we had the kids. And then when my husband did it, and I'm like, you're just making the story up as you go along. Listen, I used to joke about Chris Van Vliet. Remember the smile, the teeth? What's it like do your wrestling? You like this? What's for your color? What's for your food? You like this? You like that? Then I got to realize how good he is. Chris Van Vliet is fucking awesome. He is such an easy listening, easy viewing interview to do. Everybody has a good time. I want to see Chris Van Vliet interview Tony Khan now. That's what I want to see. And trust me, I think Tony Khan will have a much easier time with Chris Van Vliet than Ariel Helwani. All right, we're going to wrap this up in 11 minutes because we got a show tomorrow too. We don't want to overstay our welcome. But I am back. I want to thank everybody for allowing me 1 week off. We're not going off the air yet, but I want to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving. I should inform some of you out there the meaning of this thumbnail, because some people actually were questioning the thumbnail tonight and what's that all about. Now, if you tune into the history shows or if you follow me for a long time, you already know the answer. But for those that don't know, is it 15 years ago or maybe 20 years ago? It might be 15 years ago. Vince McMahon came out with a cartoon series called Mr. McMahon's Ass. It's got to be 20 years ago. Because I don't remember Vince McMahon really pushing his ass in 2009. I think that's a little bit too soon. But he came out with something called Mr. McMahon's Ass. And, if you go online, you will not find it. No one has it. I have it, and a few people have it, but no one has it. It used to be available on the WWE website. They took it down about 12, 13 years ago. And, you know, it was cartoons, and Vince McMahon's ass was the focus of the cartoon. So that episode was for Thanksgiving. And I played the whole segment on the history show. So they did, if I remember correctly, it might have did 12 or 13 episodes. I mean, I haven't checked that for that long. It's on my old hard drive. But it was Mr. McMahon's ass. And the theme song is great. I can make my ass do tricks. Watch this. I got a nice ass. You know, Mr. McMahon and his ass, and his ass, and his ass, and his ass, and his ass. So yeah, that's a screenshot from the Thanksgiving episode of Mr. McMahon's ass. So that's where that came from. Yeah, Wayward says 2006. I knew it was about 20 years ago. Because that time is when we really started going full-blown with the podcasting. We started podcasting in 2003, but we were kind of like feeling around and getting the vibe of it. In fact, I just put up all over the net a couple of episodes from 2004 and 2005 and up until April 2006. Just everybody to get a little bit of a taste of what we did in the early days. Going back, about 20 years ago. In the next month or two, we're going to put the rest of 2006 back online. And then next year, we'll start working on, newer shows. We got to put from 2004 all the way up to 2019. All those episodes are offline. So slowly they'll be coming back. I just got to be careful about it because it's very expensive. You just don't have infinite storage to re-up these shits. Because I got all my regular content, and that already eats up everything. So the older shows are easier because the files are so much smaller. But Benjamin says, why did Tony Khan keep saying that he disagreed with what CM Punk said about the Jack Perry altercation and being a wimpy boss, but never gave any specifics? Well, number one, and I'm not coming to the defense of Tony Khan, but you don't want this to become a back and a forth thing. CM Punk gave his perspective of what happened that day. All right. So Tony Khan sees it a little bit differently. Like he never discussed fearing for his life. Listen, if we could say this, and I think this is fair, Ariel Helwani definitely avoided a few questions we absolutely would have wanted asked that he did not bring up. He also let him go with a couple of comments, didn't question, when they were talking about cheap tickets, he didn't question as far as the really over-the-top extreme stuff that they do. But I thought afterwards, I'm like, well, you know what? A family isn't always a husband and wife and two preteens. A family could be a husband and wife, two teenage kids. And teenage kids, 14, then maybe they can see something like that. I think Tony Khan just disagreed with some of the viewpoint. I'm sure CM Punk disagreed with Tony Khan when Tony Khan said I was fearing for my life. I just think that in Tony Khan's mind, I can't speak for him, but in his mind, he didn't agree with CM Punk's entire take of what happened. And again, you're not going to get into too many specifics because then it's a back and forth, and you don't want to get caught with that. I'm just glad that he said something instead of saying, look, based on what happened legally, I can't talk about it. We all, so I'm glad that he said something. It's a better answer than I thought he would give. Let's put it that way. All right. Jericho in the Royal Rumble. It's up to Jericho. At this point, I am now convinced that it is Chris Jericho's decision. And listen, I know some people say, duh, it's always the wrestler's decision. I get that. But what I'm saying is that I absolutely believe AEW, Tony Khan offered Chris Jericho a new contract, whether it's a year or 2 years. I think right now Chris Jericho is deciding, do I go back to AEW and stay for another year or two? Or do I leave now and, get involved with WWE for 2026? And who knows, maybe retire in 2027. I don't think Jericho has that many years left. Jericho has money. Jericho is financially set. His family is financially set. You never not have enough money. You definitely could use more money. But I also think that Jericho's value in the WWE is a lot lower than you think. This isn't Cody returning. This is not CM Punk returning. This is someone who is older. This is someone whose best years are behind him. And when he does put on a decent match, it is few and far between. And I think Jericho at this stage of his career definitely wants to just occasionally work. The WWE grind, the WWE universe will not allow, him to just periodically once in a blue moon wrestle. AJ Lee got away with WrestlePalooza, but people started getting like, wait, it's been 2 months. Like, what's going on? Now she's back and doing Survivor Series and everything. But, after that, there's got to be a clear, explanation of her future. So I think it's in the ball is in Jericho's court. My gut feeling is that Jericho stays with AEW. I think he stays with AEW because he's too valued behind the scenes. But I've also said that Jericho will be replaced by Bryan Danielson. I've been saying that for about 7 months now, that do not underestimate how important Bryan Danielson is going to start becoming behind the scenes in AEW. If Jericho leaves, Bryan Danielson will take that role. So to me, it's up to Jericho at this point. My gut feeling is I would rather him stay in AEW because you think about him coming back to WWE, this is not like it's not a case where he's been off TV for 10 years and we want to see him back. He comes back. He's still the same age he is now. He's still very, very few and far between the matches. And he's going to be much, much, much more under the WWE microscope. And I just think that he's better off staying in AEW for another year or two. My grade of Full Gear so far, I've watched about, I'd say a little more than half of it so far. They're very, very long events. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I skimmed through Big Boom AJ, and the Eddie Kingston match was not even a minute, I think. So, some matches I just didn't really pay that much attention to. I did find the Okada Takeshita stuff pretty entertaining. Scale of 1 to 10, I give it a 7 so far. The ending was just a hot mess, and Swerve and Hangman standing side by side is just sacrilegious to me. Too soon. Just my opinion. I mean, I don't care, my enemy. Listen, you know what they're going to say. We're going to finish this in 1 minute, but I will say this. I will bet you anything you want to bet. I will bet you anything that we get the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's the only justification to have Swerve be angrier at Samoa Joe than Hangman Page. The enemy of my enemy and blah, 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 blah. That's the only way they could go with this. You watch. And we are bringing back Wednesday Night Dynamite. I've already decided. That's definitely coming back. For the intro, just for itself, that's coming back. But, we got to, you see this discussion now about AEW, when we go back to Wednesdays, this is what I want to do. Discussions like this, not analyze every fucking match and every little move and other people do that. I'd rather tell you, look, I think they're going to do this. I think this is why they're going to do this. When Mercedes Mone starts dropping more matches, people are going to be, I guarantee, listen, anybody else, let me ask you this as I go off the air. Is anyone else in the podcasting world of value, have they said to you in the last 2 weeks that the Mercedes Mone, the decline is going to start now? that as soon as the PWI 250 came out and the number one rank was there, now they could let off the gas pedal a little bit. Now you'll start to see the titles reducing a little bit, having a couple of losses. She's not going to go on a losing streak. She's not going to be in a rut. She's not going to get buried. She's not going to get jobbed out. But what I think is going to happen is she's going to go to Rome and she's going to defend the title, and somebody from AEW is going to fucking follow her to Rome and do a run-in, cause her a loss. Whether it's Chris Statlander or Britt Baker or anybody else, somebody's got to troll Mercedes Mone to other events, and people have to, I know you don't want Mercedes to lose that way, but somebody is going to have to keep causing her losses. You watch, that's going to happen. And we'll see. If that happens, then I could use that as a good reason as to why everybody should join me on Wednesdays again. So, guys, it's been real. Much love. I'm tired. I'm going to get this show online and get my ass out of here. So, what did you all think about the full screen? I mean, do you like it, or do we go back to this, or do we periodically go back? Just few people asked me the last couple of weeks, like, just do a regular screen. So I just figured, why not? So I'm out of here. I will be back tomorrow night. DTKCDiscord.com. DTKCDiscord.com. I'll be live immediately after Raw goes off the air. We'll do a Raw recap. We'll get in some news, get in some discussion, and that'll be tomorrow night. And if you can't catch me live, just download the show. Download all the shows I do, because that is keeping us consistently in the top 30 on Spotify. You're downloading the shows. It costs nothing. But doing that keeps us obviously relevant in the stats. And the higher we are in the stats, the more visible we are. And it's pretty awesome to see everybody hanging around, having a good time. And I promise you this, no agenda on my end. Just say what I meaning what I say. No influences. Just telling it like it is. And sometimes that's cool. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's hilarious. And sometimes it could be quite boring. And it could be quite lonesome. But you'll get authenticity 24/7, 365 with me. So much love to all of you. Shout out to the Castle comrades out there. Definitely was thinking about Kev this week, uploading all those old shows. Listening back to some of them, it's sad. It's sad, but it's one awesome thing. Thank fucking God we got 20 some odd years of Kev Castle shows. And the most beautiful thing about it is, and I don't ever mention this because I don't want to do it like anybody thinking it's a money grab, but on Patreon, he did about 400 or 500 shows without me. He did solo shows, and he did shows with a good friend of his named Trez. She's just a doll. So, down the line, I mean, someone's going to ask me, I know from saying this, will you make those shows public? And my answer, honestly, is no. Even if anybody that wants to just buy the shows, and I donate the money to fucking cat charities, because those shows were very, very personal, very private, and very, very raw between Kev and our Patreon family. That was never something with the intentions of being made public for everybody to hear. And since Kev is not here to make that decision, I'm not making the decision for him. So no, those solo shows and the shows with Trez would never, ever be made public on the regular server because of that. But like I said, if I have to do something alternative and put it for a charitable cause, I think that's something Kev would be totally for. If it can help a couple of strays out there, then I think he'll be cool with it. But the good thing is it's not going nowhere. All the shows that we have, they're safe. They're in a safety deposit box. There's a couple of keys online, and we'll get them online. And remember, my friends, once it's time for me to go, hopefully it ain't for another 30 or 40 years, but once it's time for me to go, any of my shows online, you guys could document this. I give you all permission. Whore my shit out. Fucking post it everywhere. Make money off of it. Do whatever you got. You want to cancel me out, try to find something from 20 years ago, which you won't. Do whatever you want in my shows. You got my permission. You will not get the missus. You will not get my estate. You will not get a lawyer. You'll not get Don Tony's lawyer to say, hey, what are you doing? This is copyright. This is DDT Entertainment. Do whatever the fuck you want with it. Seriously, just don't forget us. Just don't forget the Don Tony and Kevin Castle show. We just loved doing it, and I love that we're still doing it now. So be well, my friends. Catch you all again soon.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.